Growing up in the Warburton family was never a walk in the park, but my 16th birthday, that took the cake. I was 10 when my mom first brought it up. I was in the middle of an algebra lesson when she barged in, armed with a trio of glossy brochures. "Alex, darling," she cooed, presenting each pamphlet like it was a sacred artifact. "Meet your future wives, the Blackwood, Hathaway, and Montrose heiresses." I was 10! I couldn't even fathom finishing my homework, let alone marrying someone. But these weren't just any someones. They were the pampered princesses of the 3 richest families in the country. 3 copies of my mother. Self-obsessed, extravagant, and cunning. From then on, every family gathering, every ball or charity event was an audition for my future brides. An endless parade of curly locks and designer gowns. And then there was Lucy. We grew up together, our families close until business turned them into competitors. She was the polar opposite of the heiresses, a breath of fresh air. But more on her later. For now, you needed to know just how deeply crazy my family was, and how much crazier it was about to get. Well, it all goes to hell when Mom discovers about me and Lucy. You see, our family business thrived because of shrewd, calculated alliances, and certainly not by coupling with competitors' kids. She found out because of an unfortunate accidental butt dial while Lucy and I were planning our secret escape from one of Mom's dreadful high society dinners. "Alex, dear, who's Lucy?" Mom asked one fine morning, an inscrutable smile playing on her lips. I froze, a spoonful of cereal halfway to my mouth. That's when I knew the jig was up. She'd heard everything. She wasn't angry, though. Nope, that would have been too simple. Instead, she declared we were all going on a luxurious family vacation to Dubai. "Just a little celebration, dear. You're only 18 once," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief I couldn't decipher. I should have seen it coming. The charm that was my mother's trademark. But love makes you blind. And at that moment, I was as blind as a bat during the day. "Alex," Lucy whispered into the phone later that night, her voice barely audible. I think something's wrong. My parents, they don't seem too happy about this trip." I reassured her like the dummy I was. "It's a vacation, Lucy. Everything will be fine." She wasn't convinced, and neither was I. But what could we do? Refuse and ignite suspicion? No, we decided to play along. Dubai, here we come! Little did we know what awaited us. As the sparkling towers of Dubai disappeared behind us, and the vast expanse of the desert took over, my heart pounded with a mix of thrill and apprehension. "I can't believe we're doing this, Alex," Lucy said, her eyes wide with excitement, oblivious to the suspicions gnawing at the back of my mind. My mother had pulled it off, convincing us she had a last-minute business meeting, leaving Lucy and me alone with the desert safari guide, who had a look that didn't sit too well with me. But Lucy, oh, sweet Lucy, trusted easily. I put my suspicions aside. After all, who thinks their own mother is capable of such a conspiracy? The desert was beautiful, but harsh. A stark contrast to our laughter-filled journey until the guide, in his broken English, said he would return with water. His jeep, a small dot in the horizon, never returned. As hours turned into an eternity, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. We were stranded, and Lucy, oh, my beautiful Lucy, was diabetic. As the merciless sun beat down, we found refuge. Lucy, her eyes clouded with fear, whispered, "Alex, do you think your mom, could she have done this?" A question I'd been running from stared me right in the face. My mother, my own mother, had turned our adventure into a fight for survival. But I was not about to let her win. Not this time. "Alex," Lucy's voice was shaky, I need my insulin." I snapped into action, ripping open her bag to find her kit, my heart pounding against my ribs. Her face had gone ashen, her eyes glazed. Time was not on our side. I left it in the hotel." Lucy managed to get out, her eyes welling up with tears. Panic gripped me, but I couldn't afford to break down. "Not now!" "Okay, Lucy, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna be okay," I said, forcing a confidence I was far from feeling. I was helpless in the vast expanse of the desert, unable to provide the one thing Lucy needed the most. Hours passed, the desert cold seeping into our bones. Lucy growing weaker by the minute. I held her in my arms, my eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of life. But nothing, just silence. Silence and sand. God, I hate sand. In the depth of despair, I found a fiery anger igniting within me. My mother had done this. My own mother. She had left us to die, but I wasn't going down without a fight. As Lucy slept, the cold desert night bearing down on us, I huddled closer for warmth, clutching my phone, praying for a miracle. And then, a flicker of hope, a single bar of signal. I called the only number I had. "Emergency services, how can we assist you?" Relief washed over me as I hurriedly explained our situation. They promised to locate us using my phone's GPS and send help. The wait was excruciating. Every passing minute was a minute Lucy didn't have. But finally, the unmistakable sound of a helicopter echoed through the night. Lucy, pale but smiling weakly, squeezed my hand. "Told you we'd make it," she whispered. We were found. We were saved. In the midst of the whirlwind rescue, I made a silent vow. My mother had crossed a line, and I was gonna make sure she paid for it. For Lucy, for us. I wasn't her puppet anymore. This was war. Upon my return, Mother played the part of the worried parent to perfection. "Alex, my boy!" she cried, rushing to embrace me. "I've been so worried." "Worried enough to arrange a rescue flight out a week later, Mom?" I shot back, my voice heavy with sarcasm. She blinked at me in feigned surprise. "Oh, my dear, that dreadful tour guide said it was a ransom scheme. Can you imagine?" Her voice was laced with poorly masked glee. "Where's that sweet girl Lucy?" she asked, feigning innocence. "She didn't make it." I lied, watching her face. There was a moment of surprise, quickly replaced by a well-rehearsed look of grief. "Oh, darling!" she exclaimed, rushing to my side. "I am so sorry." In that moment, I wanted to laugh. The audacity of her charade was astonishing. "We have to move on, Mom. Life goes on." I shrugged, a plan already forming in my head. I could almost see the thought bubble above her head. "No, Lucy? No problem." But Lucy was safe, and that's all that mattered. The mourning period for Lucy was short-lived. Before I knew it, I was being introduced to 3 women who were mirror images of my mother in every horrifying way. They were the heiresses she planned for me to wed ever since I was 16. "Best our society has to offer," she told me. But as I interacted with them, their vanity, their entitlement. Behind the scenes, I was in constant communication with Lucy, reassuring her, keeping her updated on the charade at home. My nights were spent digging into our family finances, uncovering layers of deceit and desperation. It became evident that they were teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The grand lifestyle, the parties, the image, it was all smoke and mirrors. The marriages were my mother's Hail Mary for financial security. My eyes scoured through years of financial reports, tax files, and investment records. The fruit of my late-night investigations. The reality was inescapable. We were living a lie, a lavish facade. My heart thumped wildly as I uncovered the extent of our financial disarray, bankruptcy looming like a threatening storm. While my days were consumed with the 3 heiresses, my nights belonged to Lucy and my plan. Every night under the cover of darkness we spoke. Her voice, weak but determined, gave me strength. I told my parents," Lucy said one night, her voice weak from the ordeal. "I had a diabetic episode, nothing more." "And the dessert?" I kept that part out," she admitted. "You think it's best, right?" "Yes," I said, swallowing hard. For now at least. My plan was slowly taking shape. I intended to turn the tables on my mother, making her regret her ruthless games. But how to do that? Well, I needed to make some alliances first. I began by reaching out to Lucy's parents, presenting myself as the concerned boyfriend. They were hesitant at first, still reeling from the shock of their daughter's episode. But slowly, they warmed up to me. I subtly dropped hints about our financial troubles, letting them piece together the puzzle. And with every passing day, I grew more resolute. This game was just the beginning, and I intended to win. But more than that, I wanted to ensure that Lucy never had to endure anything like that ever again. It was a promise I made to her, and myself, and I intended to keep it. The next day I went to Lucy's house again, determined to find out more. "Yes, Alex?" Lucy's father began, nursing a cup of steaming coffee as we sat in his sprawling office. Our rivalry, it wasn't always like this. I remember we used to spend Christmases together. "That's right," he replied, a faint smile on his lips. "Your mother couldn't handle our success. She let envy cloud her judgment." He paused, the words heavy in the air. She stole from us, Alex." I sucked in a sharp breath. My mother? A thief? Why didn't you report her? I asked, bewildered. "We could have," But your father was a good man. He offered to pay us back every penny. So we made a pact. We severed our ties and agreed to never meet again. But why didn't you tell me? We didn't want to color your judgment. Despite everything, she is your mother. I thanked him for his honesty, my mind whirling. My mother was a thief. She'd risked our family's honor for money, and now she'd nearly killed Lucy to keep us apart. But I was done being her puppet. That night, I dialed Lucy. Luce, I said, forcing a cheerfulness I didn't feel. Remember when we used to play prank wars in the summers? Of course, she laughed. We were little monsters. Why? Well, I think it's time for one last prank. Our plan was simple. Using the evidence of my mother's past theft, I'd confront her. But instead of turning her in, I'd threaten to expose her to the heiresses and the families unless she'd back off from our lives. It was risky, but we were desperate. A week later, I found myself standing in front of my mother, a folder filled with evidence in my hands. Mom, we need to talk. Her eyes flickered to the folder. What is it, dear? She asked. No, I replied, opening the folder to reveal a set of financial documents. This is evidence. Evidence of what you did to the Jamesons. Her face went white. What? What are you talking about? Stop pretending, Mom. I know everything. The room was deathly silent. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's eyes. You wouldn't dare, she said. Just watch me. I'd hate to ruin your carefully planned marriages, but I will if you don't stop meddling in my life. Alex! No! It's my life. My choices! I left her there, speechless, walking away. I felt a weight lift off of my shoulders. The next day, I called Lucy, my voice barely able to contain my excitement. We did it, Luce! We're free! Alex, she said, her voice choked with emotion. You're amazing. No, I replied, smiling at the city skyline. We are amazing. In the end, my mother had backed off. She had to. The heiresses were soon out of my life, our family's financial facade crumbling. But none of that mattered anymore. All that mattered was Lucy and our future together. It wasn't the ending my mother envisioned, but it was perfect for me. Life, it seemed, had a funny way of working out.